The failed attempts. The chamber was vast, carved from black stone that seemed older than time itself. In the center stood the alien seal, a circular barrier glowing with silver-blue light. It pulsed like a living heart, its energy humming in, the air, filling the lungs of anyone who entered. For centuries, explorers, soldiers, and scholars had gathered here, each one hoping to be the one who broke it. The hall was silent now, except for the whispers of dozens of alien races standing around the seal. Their faces were twisted with greed, fear, and frustration. The seal was a legend, rumored to guard a treasure of knowledge, maybe even a weapon of godlike power. But no one had ever been able to open it. The galaxy's strongest minds and warriors had tried. All had failed. A tall, scaled alien commander stepped forward. His armor clanged as he raised a giant plasma hammer. His people had broken moons apart with such weapons. With a snarl, he slammed it against the glowing barrier. The sound echoed like thunder. The watchers gasped, but the seal did not crack. Instead, the hammer shattered into pieces, glowing fragments scattering across the stone floor. The commander roared in pain as the weapon burned his hands. His soldiers dragged him back, ashamed. Next came a group of psychic priests, their heads crowned with shining crystals. They formed a circle, chanting in low voices. Their eyes glowed white as they focused their minds on the seal. Waves of invisible energy struck the barrier. For a moment, the chamber shook, and many thought this would be the end. But the seal only pulsed brighter, as if mocking them. Suddenly, one of the priests screamed. His body burst into dust, consumed by the very energy he tried to control. The others fell, trembling, blood running from their noses. Their leader whispered, "It does not answer us." Gasps filled the room, yet still, the crowd did not leave. Greed was stronger than fear. Another race, insect-like with sharp claws, approached. They swarmed the seal, trying to dig, bite, and tear through it. Sparks flew, claws broke, and the creatures fell back in agony. Not a single scratch marked the glowing surface. The watchers began to argue, their voices echoing like storms. Some shouted that the seal was cursed and must be left alone. Others demanded more tests, more force. A cold, metallic alien spoke through a translator. "Power lies behind this door. Whoever opens it will control the stars." The hall trembled with tension. Then came the most desperate attempt. A warlord from the outer rim raised a small black device, pulsing with red lights. "This bomb," he growled, "has cracked planets. If the seal does not break, nothing will." The crowd screamed warnings, but his greed blinded him. He activated the bomb and hurled it at the barrier. The explosion swallowed the chamber in fire and smoke. The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Many ran for cover, thinking they would all die. But when the smoke cleared, the truth froze them in place. The seal was untouched. Not a single line or crack marred its perfect glow. Instead, the warlord who triggered the bomb was gone. Only a black shadow was burned into the stone where he had stood. The seal had not only resisted, it had punished. Fear spread like poison through the crowd. Many stepped back, whispering prayers in their native tongues. They had seen powerful warriors humiliated, priests destroyed, even weapons of mass destruction reduced to nothing. The seal seemed untouchable, alive, and dangerous. Still, some refused to give up. An alien scholar stepped forward, his thin frame shaking. He placed his hand softly on the glowing surface. "It reacts," he whispered, "but not to force." His eyes widened as the seal pulsed faintly beneath his touch. "It is waiting, waiting for something." Before he could finish, a blast of energy hurled him across the chamber. He hit the wall with a sickening thud and did not rise again. The whispers grew louder. The seal was choosing. The seal was testing. But who Or what was it waiting for? In the corner of the crowd, a small group of humans watched silently. They were late arrivals, explorers from Earth, a young species in the galaxy. The taller aliens mocked them, laughing at their simple weapons and plain clothes. "The seal has defied empires," one reptilian sneered. "What hope do humans have?" And yet, none could ignore what had happened. Every attempt had failed. Every proud race had been rejected. The seal stood as strong as ever, glowing brighter now, almost as if it were alive. The silence in the hall grew heavier. Everyone's eyes turned toward the humans, not out of respect, but out of cruel amusement. Perhaps, they thought, it would be entertaining to watch these fragile beings fail as well. But deep inside the glowing seal, a faint vibration stirred. Something ancient had felt their presence. Something unseen was watching. And for the first time in ages, the seal pulsed like a heartbeat, stronger, louder, waiting for the one who would finally dare to step forward. The human stepped forward. Chamber was still trembling from the failed attempts. Smoke curled against the ceiling, broken weapons lay scattered across the black stone floor, and the heavy silence was filled with fear. Dozens of alien races stood frozen, their proud eyes lowered, their voices gone. For centuries they had tried. For centuries the seal had laughed at their power. And then the silence shifted. At the edge of the crowd, a human voice spoke softly. "Maybe. It doesn't want to be forced." The words were not loud, but in the heavy chamber they cut through, like a blade. Heads turned, eyes narrowed. Many aliens hissed and mocked. A reptilian soldier spat on the floor. "Humans? Pathetic creatures of one small planet. Do you think you will succeed where empires failed?" The humans stood quietly, a small group compared to the towering armies around them. They wore plain exploration suits, not heavy armor, not glowing robes. But among them was Captain Elias Carter, a man with weathered skin and eyes that carried both sorrow and hope. He had seen war. He had seen Earth's cities burn during old conflicts. But he had also seen strangers share food in famine, soldiers carry the wounded through fire, and children hold on to hope in ruins. It was Elias who now stepped forward. "The crowd murmured, laughter rising in waves. "Let the primitive try," shouted one insectoid. "The seal will eat him alive," another jeered. But still, Elias walked with steady steps, his boots echoing against the stone. His team whispered after him, warnings, pleas, but he raised a hand. "It's all right," he said softly. "I need to see this." The closer he walked, the louder. The seal pulsed. The glowing circle of energy beat like a living heart, its silver-blue light reflecting in his eyes. Aliens fell silent now. Even the loudest mockers froze, for the seal had never done this before. It had never reacted to anyone, except now. A sharp cry broke the silence. The insectoid general stomped forward, claws scraping the stone. "No! This is a trick! The seal does not belong to humans!" His soldiers cheered in anger, but the seal itself responded, sending a shockwave through the ground that knocked the general back. Gasps filled the chamber. It was as if the seal had protected Elias. Elias stopped only a few steps away from the glowing surface. The energy hummed against his chest, vibrating in his bones. His hand trembled slightly, but his eyes were calm. He thought of his daughter back on Earth, of her voice asking him why people always fight over power. He thought of the graves of soldiers who died without seeing peace. Slowly, he lifted his hand. Behind him, whispers spread through the crowd. Some aliens leaned forward, their eyes wide with curiosity. Others shook their heads, certain that the human would be burned alive, torn apart like all who came before. The reptilian commander sneered. "This fool will end in ashes." But when Elias's fingers touched the glowing surface, something no one expected happened. The seal didn't resist. It welcomed. The light rippled outward, spreading like water touched by a stone. Symbols long hidden beneath the surface began to glow, lines of strange language burning in fire across the chamber walls. The ground shook again, but not with destruction, with awakening. The air filled with a low hum, as if the entire ruin was breathing for the first time in ages. Elias staggered, but not from pain. Instead, visions burst into his mind. He saw fields of earth, people planting seeds in broken soil. He saw mothers shielding children during storms. He saw humanity's endless struggle, their tears, their anger, their love, their hope. The seal was showing him what it wanted, what it was measuring. It was not strength. It was not power. It was worth. Elias's knees buckled as the visions poured into him. He saw alien wars, galaxies rising and falling, entire species destroyed because they could not look beyond greed. His chest ached. His eyes watered. But still, he stood. The seal pulsed louder. The alien crowds were now silent, completely silent. They had never seen anything like this. Many whispered in fear, others in awe. Some, for the first time, felt doubt. In their pride, a voice, ancient and deep, echoed in Elias's mind. You carry the scars of struggle. You carry the fire of survival, not power, but the will to endure. That is the key. Tears rolled down Elias's cheek. He did not know if they were his own or the memories of billions who came before, but he did not let go. He pressed his palm fully against the seal. The light burst outward, so bright the crowd shielded their eyes. The ground shook as cracks appeared. Along the seal's surface, cracks that had never been there before. Energy spilled through, filling the chamber with a blinding glow. Aliens shouted in disbelief. Some screamed in rage. "Impossible!" cried the reptilian commander. "A human cannot be chosen!" The insectoid general drew his blade. "Kill him before the seal opens!" But the seal itself responded again. A shockwave of pure energy exploded outward, knocking every hostile alien back. Weapons shattered. Soldiers fell. Only Elias stood untouched, his hand still pressed against the glowing surface. The cracks widened. The seal groaned like a door that had been locked for eternity. The entire ruin trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. The watching races who had mocked humans only moments before now stared in terror. For the first time in history, the seal was breaking. Elias took a deep breath. He whispered not to the aliens, not even to himself, but to the voice he had felt inside. "If it's humanity you want, then I will stand." The chamber roared with light, and the seal split wide open. The test of worthiness. The seal split open with a blinding flash, and the chamber filled with a sound like 1,000 voices whispering at once. Aliens shielded their eyes, some dropping to their knees in fear. Dust rained from the ceiling, the very walls of the ancient ruin trembling. For centuries, the seal had remained untouched. Now, because of a human's touch, it had begun to break. But as the cracks spread across its glowing surface, Elias Carter felt his body grow heavy. His knees shook, his chest tightened, and the air around him thickened as if invisible hands were pressing him down. He gritted his teeth, refusing to step back. The seal was not fully broken yet. Something else was happening, something deeper. The light surged and wrapped around him like tendrils. Suddenly, he was no longer standing in the chamber. The voices of the alien crowd were gone. Instead, he stood in a vast, empty field under a gray sky. The ground was cracked, lifeless, and cold. Wind howled, carrying with it echoes of cries and screams. Elias looked around, his heart racing. Where am I?" he whispered. A voice answered, not from outside, but inside his mind. "You are in the proving ground. The seal does not open to hands. It opens to hearts. Show us your worth, human. Before Elias could reply, the ground shifted. Shapes emerged from the mist. Shadows of alien warriors, towering and monstrous, their weapons glinting with cruel light. They surrounded him, hundreds of them, snarling, their eyes glowing red. Elias felt the weight of fear pressing into him. He had no weapon. His suit carried only basic tools, nothing that could stop such a horde. For a moment, his breath caught in his throat. He remembered the faces of the alien soldiers he had seen outside, proud, powerful, all defeated by the seal. Was this where he would fail too? But then another memory rose in his mind. He saw Earth during its hardest days, a burning city, families carrying each other through rubble, a medic kneeling beside a dying soldier, whispering comfort even though there was no hope. Elias clenched his fists. Humanity had always faced impossible odds, and survived. He straightened his back and spoke, his voice steady though his hands trembled. "If this is your test, I won't run." The shadows charged. They came like a storm, blades raised, voices howling. Elias braced himself. At the last moment, he ducked, rolled aside, and snatched up a broken staff from the ground. It wasn't much, but he held it firm. He fought not with strength, but with determination. Blow after blow landed on him, his body aching, but still, he stood. Every time he fell, he rose again. Blood trickled down his lip. His chest burned with exhaustion. But his will did not break. Then the shadows shifted. They no longer looked like aliens. They looked like humans, soldiers he had once known, friends he had lost in battles, his own father, who had died when Elias was young, stood before him, his face twisted in anger. "You failed us," the figure growled. "You will fail them too." Elias's heart broke. For a moment he wanted to give up, to drop the staff and fall to his knees. But then he remembered his daughter's voice, soft and hopeful. "Promise me, Dad, you'll never stop fighting for what's right." Tears blurred his vision. He raised the staff again. "I will not fail," he whispered. With a roar, he struck the ground. The shadows froze, the gray sky cracked, light pouring through. One by one, the monstrous figures dissolved into dust. The voices that had mocked him fell silent. Only the ancient voice remained, softer now. "You endure, you suffer, you rise again. That is your strength." The field vanished. Elias was back in the chamber, his hand still pressed against the seal. His chest heaved with heavy breaths, sweat dripping down his forehead, but his eyes burned with new fire. The alien crowd gasped. To them, only seconds had passed. They had seen Elias stagger, his body glow with strange light, and then stand firm again. The seal beneath his hand was now fractured with glowing cracks, spreading wider with every heartbeat. One alien scholar cried out, pointing, "He is being judged! The seal tests him!" The insectoid general snarled, his mandibles clashing in fury. "No test matters! Kill him now!" He lunged forward with his blade, but the seal pulsed violently, sending a wave of energy that hurled the general across the chamber. His weapon clattered uselessly on the floor. Still, Elias did not move his hand away. He felt another wave of energy rushing into his mind. More visions came, this time not of Earth, but of other worlds. Planets destroyed by greed, empires collapsing. Under their own pride, entire species wiped away because they could not see beyond their thirst for power. The voice spoke again. Others sought strength. Others sought glory. All failed. But you carry not only pain, you carry compassion. Do you understand the burden of this choice? Elias swallowed hard. His body shook. "I understand," he whispered. "If you're asking me to take this, power for myself, I won't. Humanity won't. It must be shared. It must be used to heal, not destroy." The chamber erupted in gasps. Aliens who had been watching in silence could not believe what they heard. No one had ever spoken of refusing power. No one had ever spoken of sharing. The seal cracked wider. The glow poured through the chamber like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Dust swirled in the air as the massive stone gate behind the seal began to tremble. The sound was like the heartbeat of a giant waking from endless sleep. Elias's knees bent. His body was nearly collapsing under the weight of the visions, the energy, the judgment. But still, he refused to let go. His voice, weak but unshaken, carried through the chamber. If worthiness is not in power, but in heart, then humanity will stand. The seal exploded in a final burst of light, flooding the chamber, shaking the ground, and silencing every voice in the crowd. When the brilliance faded, the barrier was gone. Before them stood an open doorway, dark, ancient, and waiting, and Elias Carter stood trembling, but alive, his hand lowered at last. The alien backlash, the seal was gone. The great barrier that had mocked empires for centuries now lay shattered, its fragments dissolving into the air like smoke. A heavy silence filled the chamber, broken only by the echo of stone grinding as the massive doorway behind the seal slowly opened. Beyond the gate was only darkness, yet it seemed alive, like something ancient and powerful was breathing from within. Elias Carter stood weak, his body trembling from the visions and trials he had endured. Sweat soaked his collar. His chest heaved for air, but his eyes remained steady. He had done what no one else could. Humanity had done what no empire, no warlord, no priest, no scientist had ever managed. They had broken the alien seal. The chamber erupted with gasps, whispers, and shouts. Some aliens bowed their heads in awe, unable to believe what they had seen. But not all felt admiration. For many, admiration turned instantly into envy, and envy into fury. The reptilian commander's claws scraped across the floor as he rose. His scales shone under the light, his eyes burning with hatred. "This cannot be," he hissed. "A human? A weak, short-lived creature of a backwater planet? No, the seal was meant for us, not for them." His soldiers roared in agreement, slamming their weapons against the ground. The insectoid general, still bruised from being thrown aside by the seal's shockwave, staggered to his feet. His mandibles clattered with rage. "He cheated! No mortal could pass the trial. This is a trick!" His blade flashed as he pointed it at Elias. "He must die before he claims what lies beyond that gate." The chamber filled with chaos. Some species shouted in defense of Elias. Others demanded his blood. The metallic race with glowing eyes spoke in calm, mechanical tones. The seal has chosen. To strike against him is to strike against the judgment of the ancients. But their voice was drowned beneath the roar of armies drawing weapons. Elias's human crew rushed to his side. "Captain, we have to leave," one of them whispered, eyes darting nervously to the rising armies. But Elias shook his head. He looked at the open doorway, then back at the gathering crowd. "If we run, this will never end," he said quietly. "They won't stop until they destroy us. We have to face this." The reptilian commander bared his fangs. "Face this? You cannot face the galaxy." He raised his plasma hammer. This time a fresh weapon, burning with green fire. "Strike him down!" The first blow never landed. The doorway behind Elias flared with sudden light, sending a wave of energy that pushed back the commander's strike. The hammer fell from his hands, clattering uselessly on the ground. A hush fell again over the chamber. Then the ground cracked. From the walls of the ruin, lines of glowing symbols spread outward like veins of fire. The very structure seemed to awaken. A deep voice, not one of flesh, but one of stone and eternity, rumbled through the hall, The I chosen has endured the trial. The flame will not be taken by force. Those who raise their hands against him raise their hands against destiny. The words shook the aliens to their cores, but pride is stronger than fear. The insectoid general roared, rallying his soldiers. "Destiny! I make my own destiny! Take the human!" His swarm surged forward, claws clicking, wings buzzing in rage. Elias braced himself, though he had no weapon except his will. His crew drew their rifles, standing in front of him though they were hopelessly outnumbered. The chamber was seconds away from becoming a battlefield, but the ruin itself would not allow it. From the glowing walls, beams of energy lashed out, striking the charging swarm. Soldiers screamed as their weapons melted, their bodies hurled back. The ground shook harder, and massive stone pillars rose from beneath the floor, blocking the path to Elias. The message was clear. The ancients would not let their chosen be slain so easily. Still, the backlash did not stop. The reptilian commander rallied his warriors, shouting, "The seal was ours! If the ancients choose humans, then we will tear down the ancients themselves!" The metallic race's leader raised a hand. "Stop this madness! Do you not see? The seal was not broken by strength or greed. It was broken by spirit. If you defy this, you doom us all." But reason was drowned by rage. The hall exploded in fighting as armies turned on each other. Some defended Elias, others sought his death. Blades clashed, plasma bolts lit the chamber with deadly light, and the once sacred ruin became a war zone. Elias staggered, trying to keep his footing as the ground quaked. His crew shielded him, firing back at attackers. But Elias's eyes remained locked on the doorway. The energy pulsed within, almost calling him forward. He understood now. The real danger wasn't the armies. It was what lay beyond that door, and if he didn't step inside soon, the galaxy might never know its truth. He turned to his second officer, a woman named Kara with fire in her eyes. "Hold them back," he said. "No matter what happens, I have to go through." "Captain." "You'll be killed!" she shouted, gripping his arm. Elias met her gaze. "If I don't, then all of this will be for nothing." Before she could argue, a massive blast struck the floor between them, throwing both to the ground. Smoke and fire filled the chamber. Through the haze, the insectoid general advanced again, blade raised high. His eyes gleamed with hatred. "You will not take what is ours." But as the blade fell, the doorway flared again, brighter than the sun. The general was blasted back, his scream echoing as he vanished into the smoke. Elias crawled to his feet, every muscle in his body screaming. The doorway stood before him now, fully open, its darkness no longer empty but filled with swirling stars and ancient light. The voice returned, steady and final. "The trial is not over. Beyond lies the true test. Enter if you dare." Elias took one last look at the chaos in the chamber. Aliens fought each other, blood staining the sacred floor. His crew shouted his name, their voices lost in the storm. But he knew he could not wait. With a deep breath, Elias Carter stepped into the doorway. The light swallowed him whole. The doorway beyond. When Elias Carter stepped into the doorway, the world around him dissolved in a flood of light. His body felt weightless, as though gravity itself had forgotten him. For a moment, there was no sound, no floor beneath his feet, only endless brightness stretching in every direction. Then the light shifted. Stars appeared, thousands of them, burning in a dark and endless sky. Elias gasped. He was no longer inside the alien ruin. He was standing on a floating platform of smooth black stone, suspended in the middle of a cosmic sea. Nebulas swirled. In the distance, their colors painting the void with blues, reds, and golds. Entire galaxies seemed to spin just beyond reach. Elias turned slowly, awe filling his chest. "What is this place?" he whispered. The answer came not as a voice from outside, but as a vibration inside his mind. This is the chamber of truth, the place where your kind is weighed. He gritted his teeth, steadying himself. You tested me once already. Isn't it over? The voice was calm, but heavy. That was only the beginning. The seal measured your courage, but beyond the seal lies knowledge older than empires. To touch it, you must prove not only strength of will, but strength of heart. Before Elias could respond, the stone beneath his feet rippled like water. Suddenly, 3 great arches rose around him, each glowing with faint energy. Through each arch he saw a vision, not of stars, but of worlds. The first arch showed a burning battlefield. Cities crumbled, soldiers screamed, and rivers of fire consumed. The land. Elias recognized it, not Earth, but scenes all too familiar from humanity's wars. A whisper filled his mind. Through this path you may claim the weapon, power unmatched, enough to rule galaxies. But once taken, blood will follow, the Wa. Second arch shifted to another vision. It showed a great library of light, shelves stretching forever, filled with glowing spheres. Knowledge hummed in the air, the secrets of science and creation waiting to be claimed. Through this path, you may claim the knowledge of the ancients, wisdom beyond all measure. But knowledge without wisdom has destroyed many before. The third arch revealed something stranger. A quiet village, children laughing, mothers smiling, farmers working the soil under the sun, no armies, no weapons, no glowing treasures, just simple peace. Through this path, you may choose nothing. You may return with empty hands, but with the burden lifted. This is the path of humility. Elias stood frozen, his heart pounding. Behind him, faint echoes of battle reached his ears. He could still hear the chaos from the chamber he had left behind. Alien armies clashing, blood spilling. They were fighting for what he was seeing now. Power, knowledge, control. And yet, here he stood, forced to make the choice alone. His knees bent under the weight of the moment. He thought of humanity's struggles. He thought of leaders who had craved weapons and turned earth into fire. He thought of scholars who had unlocked great knowledge but built machines of war. And he thought of ordinary people, farmers, teachers, children, who had only ever wanted to live in peace. The voice pressed into his thoughts. Choose weapon, knowledge, or humility. Elias closed his eyes. The temptation clawed at him. With the weapon, humanity would never be mocked again. With the knowledge, Earth could leap centuries ahead, heal sickness, explore stars, and yet both paths smelled of danger, of corruption, of pride. When he opened his eyes, his gaze lingered on the third arch, the path of nothing, the path of humility. His chest ached as he whispered, "But if I choose this, will all of this mean nothing?" The voice was quiet now. The test is not about what you claim. It is about who you are. Elias felt tears sting his eyes. He thought of his daughter waiting for him on Earth. He thought of her question. Why do people fight? Over power? He had no answer then, but maybe, just maybe, this was the answer. He stepped toward the third arch. The moment his foot touched the threshold, the other 2 arches shattered, their visions dissolving into smoke. A brilliant light poured through the humble arch, swallowing him whole. He braced himself for pain, for punishment, for the end. But instead, he felt warmth. When the light faded, Elias found himself standing in a chamber of crystal. Its walls glowed with a gentle golden light, and in the center stood a single pedestal. Upon it rested not a weapon, not a library, but a small flame, floating, flickering, alive. He stared at it, confused. "What is this?" the voice answered, softly, almost kindly now. "This is the flame of unity. The ancients left it not as a tool of conquest, but as a reminder. Only those who choose humility can hold it. It does not destroy, it does not dominate, it guides. With it, your kind may bring peace, if you truly wish it. Elias's hands trembled as he reached forward. The flame touched his palms, and instead of burning, it sank into him. His body filled with warmth, his heart steady, his mind clear. He felt no power, no sudden strength, but a deep calm that spread through every part of him. For the first time, Elias understood. The true treasure was not force nor knowledge, but the courage to choose peace when others demanded war. The chamber shook, and the stars around him faded. The vision collapsed, pulling him back toward reality. With a gasp, Elias stumbled out of the glowing doorway back into the ruins hall. His crew rushed to him, eyes wide with fear and relief. Aliens stopped, their fighting for a brief moment, staring as he emerged. In his hands there was nothing. No weapon, no device, no scroll of knowledge. Only the glow in his eyes and the strange calm in his voice as he whispered, "It wasn't power. It wasn't knowledge. It was choice." The silence in the hall was deafening. Soldiers gripped their weapons tighter. Warlords snarled in anger. And yet, in the shadows, some aliens looked at him not with hate, but with awe. The reptilian commander's voice broke the silence, dripping with fury. "You dare return empty-handed? After all of this, you claim nothing?" His claws scraped the stone, his army roaring in agreement. But Elias only stood taller, his chest rising with steady breath. "I claimed something greater," he said quietly. "The one thing none of you ever thought mattered." The chamber trembled again as though the ruin itself agreed. Humanity's new dawn, the great chamber of the alien ruin stood heavy with silence. Smoke curled from broken weapons. Blood stained the black stone floor, and the cries of soldiers still echoed faintly from the recent clash. Yet all eyes were fixed on one figure, Captain Elias Carter, as he stepped back through the glowing doorway. His hands were empty. The reptilian commander's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Empty! The human carries nothing. You see? The ancients mocked us all. This was a lie!" His soldiers roared in agreement, their claws beating against the ground in fury. But those who looked closely saw something different. Elias's eyes glowed faintly with golden light, and his steps carried no fear. His face was weary, yes, but also calm, so calm that even the most hardened warriors hesitated. He did not look like a man defeated. He looked like a man transformed, the insectoid. General snarled, mandibles clicking. "What did you find in there, human? Where is the weapon? Where is the knowledge?" Elias's voice was soft, but it carried through the chamber as if the walls themselves wished his words to be heard. There was no weapon, no library, no prize to control the galaxy, only a flame of unity. It cannot be held in hands. It lives here. He pressed a hand to his chest. It was never about domination. It was about choice. The hall erupted in shouts. Some mocked him, others cried liar, but some fell silent, their eyes widening in thought. For the first time, doubt spread among the armies. The reptilian commander bellowed, desperate to regain control. "Do not listen to this weakling. The ancients built their empire on strength, not humility. If the flame chose him, then it is a curse. He should be crushed before it spreads." He raised his hammer and pointed it at Elias. "Kill him!" His soldiers began to advance, weapons gleaming. The air trembled with tension, but then the chamber itself answered. The walls flared with blinding light, ancient symbols glowing like fire. The ground quaked so violently that many aliens fell to their knees. A voice deeper than thunder shook the hall. "The seal has been broken. The trial has been passed. The flame rests with humanity." To strike against him is to strike against destiny itself. The armies froze. Fear rippled through their ranks. The insectoid general hissed, but his eyes flickered with uncertainty. Even the reptilian commander stumbled back, his weapon trembling in his hands. Elias stepped forward, his voice steady. You all came here for power, to rule, to conquer. But the ancients left us something else. They knew weapons destroy. They knew knowledge corrupts. But unity. He looked across the hall, his gaze sweeping over species who had hated each other for centuries. Unity can heal. That is what they wanted. And that is what I choose. His words echoed into silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, a figure from the metallic race stepped forward. Their glowing eyes dimmed in respect. The flame has chosen. The human speaks truth. To fight against it is to repeat the mistakes of those who came before. Another voice joined. A scholar with trembling hands, his thin body bowed. Perhaps this is what we all feared. That power would never be given to the strongest, but to the one who refused it. The hall grew restless. Armies lowered, their weapons unsure. Some bowed their heads, others spat in anger but dared not attack. The ruin's glow was too powerful, its warning too clear. But not everyone yielded. The reptilian commander roared, madness burning in his eyes. Never! I will not bow to humans! He lunged forward, claws raised, his hammer blazing with green fire. His soldiers screamed and surged with him. Elias did not move. The flame within him surged, spilling outward in a golden wave. The reptilian's hammer struck, but the blow never landed. The energy blasted him back, shattering his armor, slamming him against the chamber wall. He slid to the floor, defeated, his soldiers scattering in terror. The message was clear. No force could touch the one who carried the flame. Elias's crew rushed to his side, relief in their eyes, though fear still lingered. Kara, his second officer, whispered, Captain, what now? They won't all follow us. Some will still hate us. Elias looked out across the chamber. The armies stared back, thousands of eyes filled with fear, confusion, hope, and rage. What happens now, he said quietly, is not up to me. It's up to all of us. He raised his voice, stronger now. Humanity does not claim this flame for ourselves. It does not belong to Earth, or to one species, or to one army. It belongs to everyone willing to build, not destroy. To share, not hoard. To unite, not conquer. His words rang like a bell through the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the fighting stopped. Enemies lowered their blades. Rivals looked at one another, not with bloodlust, but with uneasy thought. And in the silence, something impossible stirred. Hope. The ancient voice rumbled one final time, its tone soft now, almost gentle. The flame is past. Guard it well, human. The galaxy will rise or fall by what you do next. The light faded from the walls, leaving only the ruin's dark stone behind. The trial was over. The choice had been made. Elias Carter stood tall, though his body ached with exhaustion. In his chest, the flame burned quietly, invisible but unyielding. Around him, the galaxy's fiercest races watched, not sure if they were witnessing a beginning or an end. But one thing was certain. Humanity, once mocked as fragile and unimportant, had now become the bearer of destiny. And as Elias looked at his crew, at the trembling armies, at the doorway still glowing faintly behind him, he whispered to himself, "This is not the end. This is the dawn, the legacy of humanity." The ancient chamber was quiet now. The armies that had once roared with rage and jealousy stood in uneasy silence. Weapons lay scattered across the floor, but no one dared raise them again. The ruins' glowing walls had gone dark, yet the memory of their thunderous voice still echoed in every heart. The flame rests with humanity. Elias Carter stood at the center, shoulders heavy, eyes tired, but his spirit unbroken. His crew remained close, their faces pale with exhaustion yet bright with pride. They had seen the impossible, seen their captain chosen by something greater than any empire. Outside the ruins, the galaxy still burned with division. Wars raged on distant worlds. Warlords schemed. Greed whispered in the shadows. But here, in this chamber, something had shifted. The impossible had happened. For the first time in centuries, enemies stood side by side, united by awe, by fear, and by the fragile spark of hope. The insectoid general, his armor cracked and his pride shattered, lowered his blade at last. His mandibles clicked softly. We sought weapons. We sought domination. And yet, we were blind. Perhaps the ancients chose rightly. His soldiers buzzed with unease, but none dared challenge him. The metallic race, calm and measured, stepped forward. Humanity is young, fragile. Yet today they have done what we could not. We will watch. We will see if they are worthy to carry the flame. Their words were not trust, not yet, but they were acceptance. The reptilian commander groaned. From the ground, defeated, his eyes blazing with hatred. His army dragged him away, but his snarl echoed through the chamber. This is not the end, human. One day, we will take what you guard. His words were poison, a warning that not all would accept this new dawn peacefully. Elias heard the threat, but he did not respond with anger. Instead, he whispered almost to himself, "Then we will have to be stronger, not in weapons, but in heart." When they left the ruin, the galaxy was watching. Word spread like fire. Across colonies and empires, the story was told. The alien seal that no one could break had opened, and it was not a mighty empire or ancient race who had done it. It was a human, a man of Earth. At first, the news was met with disbelief. Many mocked it as lies. Others cursed it as insult. But slowly, as ships carried survivors back to their homeworlds, the truth spread. Every witness told the same story. The seal had chosen humanity. The ancients had spoken. On Earth, the news was met with shock and pride. For centuries, humanity had been seen as newcomers in the stars, fragile explorers barely surviving among older and stronger species. But now, Earth was no longer a footnote in galactic history. It had become the bearer of destiny. Elias Carter became a name whispered with reverence and fear. To some, he was a hero. To others, a threat. But to his daughter, watching the news. From a small home on Earth, he was simply her father, the man who had once promised never to stop fighting for what was right. Years passed. The galaxy did not transform overnight. Wars still burned. Warlords still schemed. The reptilian commander's words proved true. There were many who would never accept humanity's role. But a seed had been planted. In marketplaces, in schools, in hidden corners of colonies, people whispered, "Maybe unity is stronger than conquest. Maybe humanity carries something we lost long ago." The flame of unity never appeared again as a physical object. It burned quietly within Elias, then within those he inspired. It passed like a story, like a song, intangible, yet unstoppable. Wherever humans traveled, they carried it. Some races mocked them, others joined them. Slowly, painfully, alliances formed that no one had thought possible. Elias himself never claimed titles. He never called himself ruler, never sat on a throne. He lived and worked as he always had, quiet, steady, enduring. But in every room he entered, silence fell. In every council, His voice carried weight, because all knew he had touched the seal, he had been tested, and he had chosen humility. In the twilight of his life, Elias stood once more beneath the stars, on the deck of a ship orbiting Earth. His hair was gray now, his face lined with years, but his eyes still glowed faintly with the golden fire of the flame. Beside him stood Kara, older too, yet still fierce and loyal. She looked out at the blue planet below. "Do you ever regret it, Captain?" she asked softly. "You could have taken the weapon. You could have taken the knowledge. Humanity could rule the galaxy by now." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe, but ruling is easy. Building is harder. And unity—" He placed a hand over his heart. "Unity is worth every struggle." Kara nodded, her eyes misting. "Then maybe one day the galaxy will finally understand." Elias turned his gaze to the stars, his voice a whisper. "They will. Not because of me, but because of those who come after. Humanity's dawn has only begun." And so the legend spread. The story of the seal became more than history. It became myth. Children across the stars grew up hearing of the human who stepped forward when no one else could. Some called it a tale of courage, others a parable of humility. But all remembered it. Empires rose and fell. Wars burned and ended. But the flame endured, not in weapons, not in knowledge, but in the simple truth that one person's choice could change the destiny of all. And humanity, once seen as fragile, became the symbol of endurance, compassion, and unity. For the galaxy learned at last the lesson the ancients had left behind. Power fades, knowledge corrupts. But the heart that chooses unity will light the stars forever.